All right. Hey, today I want to talk about, I want to show you a couple things about the volume weighted average price, which is really, really helpful to look at if you're trying to figure out, like on an active day today, where stocks like NVIDIA, companies like NVIDIA, Okta, CrowdStrike, Salesforce, they reported earnings and they're kind of jumping all over the place. That tends to be a time when traders, when you can get kind of sucked in, you get sucked into the action. The analogy that I use is you take like a big pack of dogs, like let's say down at your local doggy daycare center where they're all roaming around in the middle. And then you throw in a piece of meat or something, and a couple of them start fighting over it. The rest of them are just kind of looking around, what the heck's going on? Somebody else starts in, and then somebody else, and pretty soon you got all the dogs that are fighting each other. They don't even know why they're fighting. The meat's gone. But what's happening is they get kind of caught up in the energy. And so it's really easy for us, it's easy for traders to start feeding that as well. And the market opens up, ding, ding, ding. You see these stocks start to trade, and they're all moving around so fast that you just feel like, my God, I'm missing out. I got to do something, right? I know that you think this. I know you feel this. I know you do. You know you do too. So there are ways that you can kind of gather yourself and avoid doing stuff that later you scratch your head or you kick yourself and go like, I don't even know why I did that. Damn it. I do that every time. What was I thinking? So I'm going to show you just a real simple way to stay out of that morass. So we're going to get to that. But first, I just want to mention, if you are not a member of Stock Market Mentor, $7, I got to charge you something. $7 for a 14-day look. Definitely check it out. I do some pretty extensive videos along with my sidekick, Scott McGregor, Scott's Trading Desk. We put out trading videos every day. I also keep an active trade list that gives you your entries, your exits, where your stops are, the whole bit. And it's all just designed to help you become a better trader so you can do this stuff by yourself. So you're not going to get to need me. But in the meantime, I think you do need me. So let's get to work. All right. I'm going to show you what I just told you I was going to show you. So with CrowdStrike, for example, so they reported earnings, the stock pops up, ultimately closes up over 20%. So this thing pops up in the morning. You go like, oh crap, do I buy it or not? It opened right at the 20-day moving average. That's right in here. It opened right at the 20-day moving average. And so then the question is this breakout going to hold? This is what you do. I just have this four window multi-time frame analysis, and I'll change these all around. The one thing that typically doesn't change is up here. This is my daily chart keep just to kind of keep a good frame of reference. Maybe sometimes I'll put it down to an hourly chart, but that's what other charts are for. So I just like to kind of see where this is. And then first thing in the morning, I'll do like a 1 minute chart. Let me just put the regular time there. First thing in the morning, like I'll do a 1 minute chart and then a 5 minute and then a 15 or something like that. And then as the stock trades, I will start zooming out. Instead of a 1 minute chart, I mean, by half an hour into the day, even 15 or 20 minutes into the day, do I really care what the stock's doing from 1 minute to the next? Answer, no. So you just kind of keep zooming out to get a better frame of reference. But the one thing that you can see here, this orange line here, this is the volume weighted average price. And that is, it's the average price of all shares traded, that day today. This is where, at What at 10 o'clock, the VWAP is $215.95, meaning that of all the shares that have traded so far today, half an hour in, the average price is 215.95. So what you need to know is that institutions, if they're buying the stock, most of this stuff is done by algorithms. They don't have, Vinny and Saul there at their trade desks. Remember Billions? They showed what was it, the guy Dollar Bill or whatever, sitting there at his desk trading. That crap doesn't happen anymore. That was a TV show. This is all machines here. And so, but machines are carrying out the orders of individuals. So what this is telling us is there's buying going on in this stock. The institutions are buying this stock irrespective of the big move higher. So this is one, and of course the big money was made right off the bat, but it still runs during the day. It would have been fine, but I'm not talking about intraday trading. I'm talking about intraday analysis here. So when you see this stock above the volume weighted average price consistently, that tells you that institutions are buying. Now, let's look at Micron, for example. Micron popped up right at the open, hit the 50-day moving average, and then drifted lower. Okay, right from the get-go. We'll even look down at the 1-minute chart. Okay, so this stock popped up and then immediately started trading down. 2 minutes in, the stock was down below the volume weighted average price, which think about the math equation. Of course it is if the stock started trading up here, but it didn't recover. So the stock keeps falling and the VWAP does too. And so this tells you right off the bat, like this is 15 minutes in, institutions are not buying this stock. They're not. And so you get a big pop. That's when we closed out, by the way, our bull put spread for a 50% profit. Good till canceled order. Boom. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next trade. Meanwhile, those that bought the open here are sitting here and they're riding this puppy all the way down all day long. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that when you are trading, um, here, we'll do it this way. Okay, this is a 15-minute chart. When you are trading, be mindful of what the VWAP is doing. Here, this is the orange line here. Okta, institutions are buying this all day. Salesforce, institutions are buying it all day. CrowdStrike, institutions are buying it all day. NVIDIA, institutions are buying it, but then right about here, they got kind of tired. But the stock's back down here. So guess what? Institutions are buying it. These are the types of little tricks that you need to have under your tool belt so that you're able to make sense out of the intraday volatility. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that on to you. I think the VWAP is a super, super important aspect of trading. I do talk about this a lot in Stock Market Mentor. So I invite you to check it out. Okay, seriously, I want to see you there. Okay, and if you don't show up, I'm going to know about it.